I have always been here.
Good evenings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing. And of course, I'm your host, the Ambassador, and hope you all are having a great Saturday night. And been a busy day for myself, and a long shift at work, but not a bad shift at work. And it's good to be back in the wing. Good to see you all this evening. And tonight we continue our discussion of the Matrix series with Volume 2, Return to the Matrix. And tonight, we'll be discussing the first film in the series, The Matrix. And just to kind of kick things off, I will tell you what, I remember the summer of 1999. And honestly, I remember the buildup to the first Matrix film coming out, and I was really excited for this film. I was like, this is something different. This is something we have not necessarily seen before. And the marketing for the film alone was very different because there was this question that was always going around: what is the Matrix? What is the Matrix? What is the Matrix? And we didn't know what the Matrix was. It was one of those really good hooks for this first film. So, and honestly, I have been a longtime fan of this film, a longtime fan of this franchise. And for those of you who don't know, part of the reason why I am doing this series is because of the new movie that's going to be coming out in December, Matrix Resurrections. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be discussing the films. Of course, Thursday night, we did a breakdown and discussion of the Animatrix. And tonight, we're going to be doing a breakdown of the first film, the original film that kicked off the whole franchise. And I will tell you all, I did not know a lot about this a lot about this cast. And honestly, I knew of Keanu Reeves because of, well, of course, Bill and Ted, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I knew of Lawrence Fishburne a little bit because he was in the Kenneth Branagh production of Othello as the titular character Othello. But the rest of this cast, I didn't know a whole lot about, particularly the main cast. I had never even heard of Carrie Ann Moss before, much less Hugo Weaving. But I will say this for Hugo Weaving: this film was kind of the kickoff for his career because this came out 2 years before his role as Lord Elrod from Lord of the Rings. And I will say this for Hugo Weaving: he has great range as an actor. He can play a very good antagonist in terms of Agent Smith. He can also play a great protagonist in terms of Lord Elrod. And to the chat, Sci-Fi Nation and Mountains of Elysium, fellas, it is good to see you. And Elysium, considering the hour, I really appreciate you being here tonight. So thank you for tuning in this evening, my friend. And hope you enjoy the discussion, whether you stick around for a little while for live or you catch the replay. So, but I rewatched this today because I have been busy the last couple of days. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch it before then. It had been quite a long time since I had seen the first Matrix film, so I pulled up HBO Max on our PS4, and they've got all four films. They've got the Animatrix, Matrix, Reloaded, and Revolution. And I will say this: watching it on our high def 4K TV for a film that was made in the 1990s, it holds up exceptionally well, surprisingly well, I would say, even. And I did notice a few of the blue screen effects here and there, but honestly, it didn't really bother me in terms of the story. And honestly, I just sat back and I enjoyed the ride. One second, guys. Our cat is being stupid. I will be. That's okay. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I hope none of you are listening on headphones and got deafened by that. Cat got spooked. So my apologies. So as I was saying, with the let's see, where was I? Oh yes, with the visual effects for the first Matrix and watching on my 4K TV. It didn't break the immersion for me, and unfortunately, no Elysium. It's not the Deja Vu cat. It's not a black cat. It's just a regular, ordinary cat. And Sci-Fi Nation, thank you, bud. I do appreciate it. So, but honestly, they did a lot of really interesting effects for this first film. It's a lot of stuff we had not seen before, and I was honestly very entertained by it. And oh, hey, well, look who's back. Hey,
Hey, you knew I'd be back for this one.
oh, I had a feeling. I was just waiting. So, how you doing, man?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. So, um, I'm going to yield the floor. So, we're talking the first Matrix. So, your thoughts on it, on anything I've brought up thus far?
I have to agree that as far as the visual style, for me, obviously it was a first. I did not see those effects before in a movie. Uh, the whole Matrix, where they slow down Neo, but he's actually going faster than the objects that are trying to get him, like bullets and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, visually, in my opinion, it was very cutting edge for the time.
Yeah, because this came out in '99 is when this was originally released. So, and the cool thing for the first Matrix was it, as I said before, the marketing scheme for this whole thing was very inventive. It was very ingenious because they kept asking the question, what is the Matrix? And the only way you were going to find out is to go see the movie.
Which, yeah,
Go ahead.
that's a pretty. No, I was going to say that's a pretty good way to market a movie. You want to find out what it is? Come and watch the movie.
Exactly. And Elysium, I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that. I think honestly the effects for Lord of the Rings hold up better because a lot of it was done practically. But again, it's a matter of perspective. As I said before you came in, Sci-Fi. I did notice some of the green screen effects on our 4K TV, particularly in the part towards the end where Neo and Trinity save Morpheus from the agents. And you could tell that it was like either a blue or a green screen below Fishburne and Reeves when they're dangling from the end of that rope and harness out of the helicopter. But again, it's a minor nitpick. It's something, like I said, doesn't take me out of the film. Now, speaking of the film itself, the whole theme of it, this is a very I will categorize it as this. It is a very unconventional hero's journey. If you really want to get down to brass tacks and take a look at this film, because Neo is the hero. He just doesn't know that he's the hero. So, your thoughts on that?
Well, no, you're right. And Morpheus is propping him up to be the hero. But then there's others that are like, how do we know? He thought this person and that person was. So they're kind of questioning Morpheus's judgment with Neo because of past failures.
Well, yeah, because if you take a look at after he's gone through all that training, and one of the youngest members of the crew, Mouse, is like, "What if he doesn't make the first jump?" And they're all like, "Nobody ever makes the first jump." But you see the expression on Trinity's face after he doesn't make that first jump.
Just sheer disappointment.
Yeah, absolute. Like, well, maybe the Oracle was wrong. And there's many themes of the unknown hero, the hero's journey, the whole concept of what defines you as a person, especially because there's that scene when they're all when several of them are in the car, and Neo is remarking upon all the places that he used to eat when he was jacked into the Matrix, and I can't remember if it was, and I just watched this and it bothers me. I think it was Trinity who says this when he says, "What does that mean?" And no, actually, it was Morpheus who says this. Morpheus says to Neo, "The Matrix doesn't define who you are. It was just what you were jacked into, or what you were connected to." And that brings up a very interesting construct of the fact that, are we truly influenced by the world around us, or do we influence the world around us instead? And I think in a lot of ways, honestly, I think it's a bit of both. Because if you look at Neo, considering he is this prophesied one, he does have an impact and an influence upon the world around him. But the world around him doesn't necessarily have an impact on him like it normally would on us, because it's all just one massive simulation. And the idea of a simulated world where you just simply exist, not having any type of influence upon you, is a very intriguing one. So, Sci-Fi, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts on that is, if the Matrix doesn't define who you are, then how do you have a sense of self within the Matrix? How do you go on, even if it's just in your head? How do you then dissociate that with who you are when you come out of it, like Neo and Morpheus?
Well, here's the big thing. The Matrix essentially is a prison. It's a virtual prison that doesn't trap the body, it traps the mind. But in this particular instance, the fact that it doesn't have any type of impact upon you is somewhat remarkable, because we are influenced by the world that we live in. And the fact that everybody that lives in the Matrix, to one degree or another, may not realize it, but the world around them doesn't influence them. They simply exist within it. all it is a program that is, as Morpheus said very poignantly, meant as a prison to keep humans docile so they can be turned into a living battery. And that's it.
Right, and I get that. I'm a fan of the film, so obviously I
Yeah.
know that. But I'm just saying, though. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a prison for your mind because your body is a big battery, basically. So, but you're still living basically inside your head, plugged into this big simulation. So you've still
Mhm.
got a sense of self, and everything you do while you're in there has an impact on you, no matter how small.
But
So,
here's, go ahead, sci-fi. Sorry.
and that's how they are defining themselves while they're inside of it, how they're
Mhm.
interacting with the simulation. Now, when you come out, and obviously it's culture shock to say the least.
Mhm.
Uh, but I mean, you're still going to hold on to some of that sense of self that you had, along with questioning your sense of self, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah, it very much does. Because here's the thing: while you're inside the Matrix, you're living, you're going about your daily routine, and you're almost going through the motions of things. And it's the people that are woken up that realize, that are rescued by the resistance, that they don't real they don't understand that everything that they have lived, everything that they have done, is essentially just one enormous lie. It's all fake. There's no truth to it, and therefore they have no identity. I think one thing that they did very well in this film, and just real quick, I want to send a shout out to the chat. Brightest day. Good evening, bud. Thank you for being here, and hope you enjoyed the stream. And appreciate as always seeing you. So, um, here's the crazy thing, and we'll use Neo as an example, which obviously is what I think would be appropriate. All his life, he has existed in this pod. From the moment that he was grown and plucked from one of those fields and plugged into the power plant, even though he didn't realize it or even know it, that's the only existence he has known. When he's rescued by the resistance from the machines, and they've got him there in the operating room of the Nebuchadnezzar, and Neo says to Morpheus, "Why do my eyes hurt?" And he's like, "Because you've never used them." Everything that Neo has seen or smelt or touched or tasted is a simulation.
Yeah,
Not a drop of it.
it's part of a program.
It's all part of a program to keep him docile. And that is honestly a truly sad thing to say. And also the fact that his physical body, he can't move on his own accord because his muscles have never been used.
Right, as they put it, severely atrophied, which
Yeah.
obviously means never been
The
used
mus
or haven't been used in so long that they
well,
shrank. So
here's the thing. Here's the thing. They have never, ever, ever been used.
right,
He has been essentially paralyzed or immobilized his entire life. He has just existed in that pod filled with that goo that they use to suspend and keep the human occupant in suspend in tranquil, essentially.
now, did you draw the parallel to with them being in the pods, curled up the way they are, with the fluid
Mhm.
around them? That automatically reminded me of being in the womb.
I think that was kind of the idea. I do. I think that's kind of the idea because as Morpheus said, human beings are no longer born; they are grown, which means that the machines have kept human DNA on file or in storage to clone new people to use as batteries.
Or
So
just D-
obviously the machines have figured out a way around cloning decay, which is
well,
kind of
that or just DNA from every sample when they're born or before they die, and pair
yeah
that with another set of DNA, and there you go.
yeah.
Instant incubator.
hmm and I'll bring up Elysium's comments here. Uh, the original patch for the Matrix had those in the Matrix being used as additional processing power and not a battery. The CEO made the Wachowskis change it as though as changed it as they thought people would not understand. I can get that. I truly can. I can get that. And I think because I think that would be a little bit difficult for some people to come across. And then, of course, I'll bring up Elysium's other comment here. The Matrix is the brave new world taken to its extreme extent. Yep. I do get that reference, Elysium. So, and the Nerdporial life form. Nerdporial, good to see you this evening, bud. Appreciate you stopping by. Just me and Sci-Fi are discussing the first Matrix film, kind of picking up on our conversation from the other night when we were discussing the Animatrix. So, and for those of you that are coming in, if you feel comfortable enough and you want to pop on and join the conversation, I have put the link. I have pinned the link in the chat. So if you want to discuss Matrix with me and Sci-Fi, the invitation's there. So, but yeah, you know, I think what the Wachowskis were seeking to do, you know, I've done a lot of research on these films, and what the Wachowskis' original intent was to take a Japanese anime and turn it into a live action film. And I think and use a lot of the themes within Japanese anime for this series of films. And I think honestly what they were able to do with these films was a great thing. And a face I have not seen in a very long time, Eastland Burkholder. Eastland, it is good to see you, man. Long time no see, but good to see you just the same. The person in the pod is a one-time power source and can be used as a battery. Why it is stated as either one or anything? I did misunderstand. Let's see. Why is it stated as either one or the other, or did I misunderstand? What the Wachowskis were setting out to do, Eastland, was they wanted to make it as if the humans were more so processing power for the machines rather than simply a power source. And the studio asked the Wachowskis to change it to that the humans were just simply a power source, a battery, nothing more than that.
Right. So if to use an analogy, there's an Enterprise episode where the NX-01 goes into this repair facility. And at the end of the show, you find that all of these different species are hooked up to the mainframe of the facility's computer to enhance the processing power and to let it do everything that it does. And I think what they're saying is that was the Wachowski brothers' original idea for the movie, but they didn't think people would grasp that concept of using human brain power to enhance the processing power of the machines, which I think we had that conversation the other night, Ambassador.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah, totally.
And but instead they said, well, let's just make them into big Duracell batteries, hence the copper top comment.
Yes, and I honestly, I liked those little references and everything too. And like, you know, the first, you know, I will tell you, I had the opportunity to go see the first Matrix in theaters, and I saw all three of them in theaters. When they originally came out back in '99 and into the early 2000s, and it was a journey that I really enjoyed, and I honestly am glad that I gave these films a chance, because honestly, we had never really got anything like this before. We had not gotten something that had this visual style to it. And yes, the story is rather elementary in the fact of, like I said, it's the hero's journey, or it's part of the hero's journey in terms of Neo's journey. But what the Wachowskis did is they blended contemporary Western, the contemporary Western action film. When I say Western, I mean American action film, with martial arts, with stunt wire work, and tossed in some, out to be polite and to keep it simple, some base level philosophical thought. And they created a rather intriguing and interesting series of movies. At least I thought they were. So let's see. I'll bring up your comment here, Eastland. I love the dancing in Zion movie. Flawed and fun. Okay. I think I know what you're trying to say, Eastland. So, but yeah, fun to watch. Okay.
Fun to watch. Yeah, that's what I gathered. Yep, fun to watch.
Yeah, gotcha. Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. And Eastland, I will be doing a review next week. I think it's actually next Thursday. I'll be doing my review of Matrix Reloaded. So, because we're going to go through the whole series and all. Because I've been kind of waiting for an excuse, quote unquote, to talk about these films. And like I said, when they made the announcement a few weeks ago that with that trailer that we got for Matrix Resurrection, I was like, here's my excuse to talk about the Matrix films. Eastland, that's okay, man. Don't worry about it. So, happens to the best of us, even me. So, but the other thing that I found of real interest when I went to see this in theaters, it was actually well received. I actually went and saw this a couple of times because there was a lot that I kind of missed the first time around that I caught onto the second time. There were a lot of dialogue cues and a lot of visual cues that I hadn't caught onto the first time. And I have to admit, this was almost like a very cyberpunk-esque Alice in Wonderland. And you do have references to the original Alice in Wonderland. You have the one girl that shows up with
the White Rabbit.
The White Rabbit.
Follow the White Rabbit. I believe is what Trinity said.
Yeah, because it was Trinity that was typing to Neo on the computer there. So, and I'll bring up Eastland's comment here. Okay, one thing I hate about the movies. Hate. The sweaters with runs. Can't fix the sweaters. Really? Eastland, I can kind of understand where you're coming from on that one. If my grandmother was still alive, she'd be like, you have a hovercraft, but you don't have a sewing machine, or you don't have a thread and needle. Seriously?
Well, then again, look what they ate for food, man.
A
the
bowl
gray
of
glop.
snot. A bowl of snot. Yeah.
It looked like farina on crack, man.
Looked like what?
Farina on crack. Like cream of wheat, farina, same thing. Like cream of wheat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just really nasty version of it.
Okay, I have a theory video in the works on the Matrix, as the Oracle architect are unreliable narrators. The people as processors is still possible. The Barry is just another layer of the lie.
Well, here's the thing.
At least
the Oracle.
I will check that out.
The Oracle was a program that was established in
Oh,
movies.
yeah.
Not a process. Like processor, are you meaning like hardware type processor?
No. What Elysium is saying, the people are processors, not the Oracle and the architect. They are programs, yes. Elysium is saying that the people are still our processors is still plausible.
Oh, processing the simulation as they go along. Okay,
Or
yeah,
they're
I
being
get
used
what you're
by or they're being used by the machines for processing power.
right, right.
Because think about all the hundreds or thousands or millions of minds that are at their disposal there. You'd be kind of foolish, even though they do have very high order artificial intelligence. Why not avail you of every resource that you possibly can? Just saying.
Right,
And,
and
oh,
yeah,
mhm.
that was my question the other night was that before we got into this, which I believe you wanted to save it for this movie,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean exactly. I mean, any high order logical thinking sentient being, if they have the resources, they're going to use every resource at their disposal. They're not just going to. I mean, it's like when we first started refining crude oil for kerosene, we didn't know about gasoline until the need arose for it, and then we started refining the gasoline out of it, and so on and so on. So you would think the same would apply to that type of logical intelligence. They have the processing power along with this great source of energy that we're getting from them. So why not?
Well, and here's the other thing too. It could potentially be that they did use the humans for both purposes. They just didn't necessarily reference it in the films to keep the whole concept of the plot of the movie simple for everyone, for
Right,
the audience, and so on.
because yeah, like you said, the studio said that might be too far of a concept for people to grasp because it wasn't really
Yeah,
talked about back then, like it is
exactly.
today.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'll bring up Elysium's comment here. The battery is a misdirection to keep people, red pills, from seeing actual exit doors. Yeah, and that's what Morpheus and the other resistance, the rest of the resistance, is doing for people that are hooked into the Matrix. They're offering them a way out so that they can have a better life. Okay, I have a Matrix. I have a theory. I have a Matrix theory. Okay, so if you reboot the series, here's a good idea. Did they ever get out of the Matrix, and why not continue? Well, here's the thing, Eastland. Um, at the end of I don't know if you ever saw Revolution or not, but what ends up happening at the end of Revolution is there's this big knockdown drag out fight between a super powered Agent Smith and Neo, and then there's of course the battle between the machines and the army there at Zion, the last human city. And essentially the gist is this: by the time things are over, Trinity is dead, Neo is dead, Morpheus survives, the majority of the people in Zion survive as well, although there are a lot of casualties. And so I would say that, considering what we've seen in the trailer for Matrix Resurrections, one of two things is a possibility. They took DNA from Neo's and Trinity's bodies and built new or created new batteries, new people, or new bodies to use in their power plant. And that's where this new new Neo and new Trinity have popped up.
Okay, so you're saying they made digital copies of
No,
their
not
brainwave?
digital, not digital. They took DNA from Neo and from Trinity and
Oh, and
created.
then recloned them. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So, and shout to the chat, Daniel Martin. Good to see you, bud. Um, yeah, Mr. Anderson.
Eastland finished part
Yeah,
two of his comment
yeah,
there.
I got it here. I see it.
Okay.
There is a talking point this is taking place far, far in the future, and there might be an Earth. However, everyone in the Matrix is not human. Some alien, very alien to us, using the Matrix as a sort of simplifies reality for therapeutic purposes. Humans are a playable character. There are no humans in the Matrix. I would suggest that humans have lived billions of years ago. Hmm. Now that's a really out there theory, Eastland. I'm not saying there's necessarily anything wrong with that theory. I don't think it's necessarily what the story the Wachowskis were trying to tell. Because if you look at the story that they're trying to tell, it is very somewhat rooted in reality, because we are on the cusp of creating artificial intelligence. Once we crack that, the world around us is going to change in very interesting ways. Because either the artificial intelligence or artificial intelligences, plural, are going to be either a benefit to us or an extreme detriment, i.e., the Matrix, and i.e., most definitely the Terminator films. So it's just a question of how we treat this artificial intelligence. That's going to be the key. And I hope that enough people have watched the Terminator and have watched the Matrix to know that you don't mess around with machines that are as smarter, or either as smart or smarter than you. Because
there's another there's another reference you're forgetting.
Hmm?
The Cylons.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Had to throw that in.
Oh no, there's nothing wrong. Yeah, I'll agree with that most wholeheartedly. The Cylons from Battlestar Galactica, yeah, totally. But you know, the real draw for me with this film, it wasn't necessarily the action, although I did enjoy the action. It was the whole conversation of what is the reality that we live in? How is it perceived? And how do we react to this reality that is around us? So, and yeah, I'll bring up Daniel Martin's comment here. So many biblical references throughout the Matrix franchise. Yep, very true. Very true, Daniel. And let's see, Elysium. Considering how I feel about looking at Twitter, if we invent artificial intelligence, it'll be the first form of intelligence on the planet. Elysium, there's some truth in your fiction and some fiction in your truth, but I would say there's more truth in your fiction.
I would have to agree.
So, and I'll bring up your comment here. Oops, sorry about that, Easton. Not saying anyone intended what I typed. No, Easton, you're good, bud. You're solid, my friend. Truly.
I was gonna say you're on one of the right channels for fan theories. So,
well, yeah.
That is one thing we love. Yeah, fan theories. Yeah, we love to hear them.
Yeah,
we love to see what people have to say.
Well, I mean, shoot. There have been people who said that even potentially the Matrix could be connected to the Terminator franchise in some form or another.
Yeah, it could be an extended version of Skynet, 1,000, 2,000 years down the road.
Essentially, yeah. And not to mention the hunter killers and all the other machines that the supercomputer uses have evolved themselves into what we see in this film. I can't remember who said it. It might have been Elysium or someone, but they made reference to a lot of the design aesthetic and concept aesthetic for this film. Oh, it was Nerdporial Lifeform who brought it up. Ghost in the Shell was an obvious visual reference. Yeah, Nerdporial. I do know about the series, or rather the movie. No, I'm sorry. This is gonna drive me nuts. Oh, Ghost in the Shell. I would say there is a lot of references to other animes in the Matrix, because the Wachowskis, I'm just going to address them as such. I'm not going to put anything else on their name, just the Wachowskis. They obviously have a great love and appreciation for Japanese anime. And I can't say I disagree with that, because I too myself love Japanese anime. And the crazy thing is, there have been so many people who have been fussing and fuming and hollering because they're taking some of these classic animes and they're turning them into TV shows, into movies, but they're doing it all in live action. And I'm thinking, can't you just appreciate what they're doing rather than just being a neg about it? So, I'll bring up your comment here, Eastland. What the Matrix creators is different from my Matrix movie idea, reboot movie idea. Let's see here. Hang on. No Matrix, Skynet, but very cool that billions of years after all humans on Earth are dead, aliens are using it as a myth or a legend. Yeah, that is a cool idea, Eastland. So, thank you for sharing. So, and I'll bring up Elysium's comment here. I have a fanfic theory that the Matrix is linked to the Altered Carbon universe. The Matrix is a prison for the most belligerent of both sides. Altered Carbon are blended species in the real world. That's potentially true, or that's a really cool concept that you come with, Elysium. So,
Altered Carbon. That's the one. Altered Carbon. That's the one where they take a consciousness of somebody and put it in a different body, right?
If I remember correctly, yes. Yes, it is.
In its most basic form. I mean, I've only seen 1 or 2 episodes, so I'm not up on the whole idea.
Yeah, I'm not either. I would say the only other series or movie that I think would compare, at least in some part, is the new series that's being headed up by Ridley Scott, and that's the one I started watching last year, and that's Raised by Wolves, because they deal with the concept of, can a android mother and father raise a group of children? And you have a very interesting conversation on the relationship between human beings and machines.
There's a science fiction movie kind of like that called Mother, I believe. And it's a AI robot that basically raises a human, and then things go south and mayhem ensues, we shall say, and between the robot and the humans.
Yeah. And I'll bring up Daniel's comment here. Hang on one second, Daniel. I remember there was very little marketing for the Matrix. I remember they just directed you to a webpage called What is the Matrix? I really miss marketing like that, not knowing anything about it. Yeah. Daniel, I did bring that up myself. Well, and here's the other interesting thing. 99, when The Matrix came out, and the year before when they started marketing it, there was another film that was marketing right next to it that also had a neat promotional and marketing scheme as well, and that was, of course, the Blair Witch Project. I know a lot of people say that all imagination has been stripped out of the entertainment industry. I think if more people, how do I want to say this? Give me a second. I think if more studios are willing to take risks with franchises or just single off movies like The Matrix, you'll see a lot more creativity come into the entertainment industry, regardless of what coast or what area of the country or even what nation they are in, except for a few random exceptions. You would start to see some really out there, but I think potentially really cool films being released in theaters. But for right now, this is what we've got. So, and I'll bring up your comment here, Eastland. Teasing you, all of you are wrong. It's a Highland idea that in one's own dimension, one is real, and another dimension, the real beings in the other dimension breed through us.
Continued in
Continue,
another.
continue through as. Wait on the second part. Okay, I'll bring up your comment here, Elysium. I saw The Matrix on opening weekend and went on and not knowing anything about it, I was blown away. Yep. Elysium, I was the exact same way, my man.
I didn't get to see it in a theater, but I tell you what, when I rented it,
Mm-hmm.
even watching it on the old 4x3 CRT TV,
Uh-huh.
I was blown away. And I was just watching it on old school TV. So I can imagine how good it looked in the theater.
Cool.
In its 16:9 glory or whatever they use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll bring up your comment here, Eastland. Bleed through as fictional characters like Jung's collective consciousness. All are real in their own dimension and might bleed through as their fictional characters in other dimensions. Yeah. Well, and that's a very good point there. You've got Eastland. When you have no frame of reference for who you are or where you're going or anything else, you can easily be led astray. And I think what a lot of programs in the Matrix try to do is try to lead humans astray, so they don't catch on and they don't get wise to what's really going on around them and with them. So, Sci-Fi, your thoughts on that?
Eastland, I am impressed with that, except for them being fictional and bleeding through. That sounds almost exactly like how the man in the high castle ended up with one of their main plot devices with the multiverse. Instead of being fictional representations, it was actual duplicates of themselves in these different dimensions that were leading different lives. But yeah, that's why I love that you said fictional instead of actual, because in The Man in the High Castle, you couldn't cross into another verse, so to speak, unless that version of you was already dead, and vice versa. So I like your concept of it being fictional and not actual people. Oh, you're muted, bud.
I've got your comment up here, Daniel. Fact about Blair Witch Ambassador: 99 was a very special year for films. Phantom Menace, Fight Club, I believe, very underrated films for a very underrated year for films. Yes, I will agree with you on that one, Daniel. And those are all films I went and saw in theater. Of course, Phantom Menace, that's a given. I love Fight Club. It's one of my all-time favorite. Very unconventional film. I might actually do a review on that film at some point because I love the cast. I love the story. I even read the book that it was based on, and the book was very, very interesting. Just like
I'm gonna have to watch that again because I remember like the one line everybody remembers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, rule number 1 of Fight Club: don't talk about Fight Club.
Yeah. So let's see. So every fictional character might have a real existence in different dimensions where the physics might be very different. Yeah, and they do show that in the Matrix, Eastland, because the Matrix is a program. It is not physical reality as we understand it. And I think they're also making a comment through that construct about the reality in which we live as well. Not so much the fact that we can do all those things that we see the main characters doing and so on, but I think more so that we shape the perception of our reality around us through our will and through our ideas and through our creativity. And if you think about what Morpheus is doing to Neo during that first sparring match, he's trying to get him to break the shackles
Yeah,
and
of the Matrix's reality.
of the Matrix and the way that he's been thinking for all this time.
And real quick, I just want to address Eastland. I know they're different. I'm not all that up on Heinlein, but I know they are, that it is different than the multiverse. I was just saying that I love your concept of it being like a fictional duplicate or opposite.
Excuse me.
And they can go and do that, you know, and then have the different physics and all that, and just to see how it plays out. I think that's a great concept you have there for a fan theory.
Yes. Yeah. Eastland, very well thought out. And Elysium, get you some rest, my friend, and God bless. And you take care as well. And our regards to Mrs. Elysium. So we'll catch you next time, bud. But yeah, you know, I almost wish I had had access to my philosophy professor that I had in seminary when I went to see this film back in '99. But unfortunately, I didn't. Because, you know, I know everybody focuses on the action set pieces and all the quotes and all the visuals and everything. But I think what this film does exceptionally well is it gives a good primer for some very basic, but not so much basic in that they are limited, but basic in that any person can latch onto them, think about them, and discuss them with others. And I think the dissemination of philosophical thought is something that is grossly lacking in our society. And if the Wachowskis could take a franchise like The Matrix and do that, then great. Do it.
Put some great visuals in it, put a little bit of action, along with their storytelling, which I think is still some of the, you know, I'm going to rank it with some of the best storytelling for a movie I've seen, period. Just the way they presented it. Because of the philosophical and the cerebralness of it that you don't realize they're doing when you're watching it, but then you go home and you think about it and you're like, wow, that's what that could have meant, you know, or the what if factor, you know.
Yeah, Eastland. Yeah, I think that was where I was. That's where I was going. It's a good entry point for people who aren't really up on all sorts of really deep or complex philosophical thought, but it's a place to start. And you know, I have got all sorts of philosophy books on interpreting scripture and all sorts of other things. So, but you know, honestly, the crazy thing was in the months after I would be talking with talking with friends at work about the first about the Matrix, and we would get into conversations like this, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, half the time we were probably so far off our base that any legitimate philosopher or philosophy professor would be like just shaking their head at, no, you are so wrong, but at least you're trying. So,
Well, you got to think too. I mean, this isn't conventional philosophy either. Not something you would use to earn a degree with. I mean, it's actually making you think about the human experience in a big way.
well, yeah, well, yeah. Um, let's see. I'll bring up your comment here, Eastland. The Fourth Age said Spock and Star Trek introduced him to logic and was not actually really logic, but it's an op-ed
It opened the door.
opened the door for his young self to learn logic. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I was. All right, thank you, Eastland. I'll have to check them out. Appreciate it. So, um, the Fourth Age, the Fourth Age, the Fourth Age, the Fourth Age. I have to remember that because I like a good philosophical channel that they know what they're talking about and they're not just talking out of their neck. But kind of transitioning from the whole philosophical talk that we can come back to, obviously. I have to admit, the stunt work and so on, and the fight choreography for this film, I thought was some of the very best that we had seen in a very long time. My sound is crazy, robot-like, bad equipment. Sci-fi, am I coming through okay?
Yeah, you sound fine to me, man. Am I okay?
Yeah, you sound fine. He might be talking about his maybe. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
guys, if you're having trouble hearing us, let us know in the chat, and we'll try to fix it as soon as we can.
And you don't have to read my. Yeah, I know I don't. I don't Eastland, but it kind of helps me process them. That's all. So, let's see. Definitely, The Matrix was so philosophical with great action, but the underlying meanings are what sticks: choice and free will. Okay, no, hey, Eastland, if you're not able to join, that's fine. I'm happy to just have you in the chat and everything. So if your computer's not where you can join us, I completely understand. I'm getting everything that you're saying in the chat, so just keep it up, bud. And I appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. We appreciate each and every one of you in the chat. I mean, the link is up there, like you said, if you want to join. It's not a requirement. But we do appreciate each and every one of you hanging out in the chat with us and giving us questions and stuff to,
to bounce off of. Yeah. So, but as I was saying, that opening sequence where the police officers go into the hotel room and Trandy is just saying they're in the dark and they're like, hands up now. And then you're like, what? And the camera pans around her and she freezes in midair and then she extends her leg and kicks that one police officer. And you're like, what the hell did I just see?
Yeah, she does that Karate Kid thing and it stops midair, pans around her, and then the dude goes flying. It's like, wow.
Well, and I've seen that sort of shot done before, but it wasn't in live action. It was done in anime.
I don't watch a whole lot of anime, but yeah, I believe you. But yeah, that's the first time I saw live action.
Well, like I said, the Wachowskis' intention was to create a live action anime.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of their intention. That was part of their motivation to create these films, was to create something different, both in style and tone and in dialogue and so on, but something that would be accessible to everybody as well. They didn't go over people's heads. They aimed for where the normal everyday person, the person that had never studied philosophy or had gone to university and studied philosophy there under a professor and so on, they just went off and they did their thing. And it
and
worked. So
they struck that balance, like
Mhm.
literally that perfect balance between what their vision was with making a live action anime, the visuals, the storytelling, the getting you to ask, or getting the average person to ask themselves, what if?
Mhm. Yeah, and I want to send a shout to the chat. Benson's good to see you, bud. And yeah, Mama Bester, she's doing good today. She had the day off or anything from work, and she's in the bedroom, actually playing the. At least as far as I know, she is playing the updated version of Skyrim because it's the 20th anniversary. Thursday was the 20th anniversary of the release of the original Skyrim on console and PC. So,
So is that an updated version? Because I have the special edition on the Xbox One. So is this a newer, like a new version of that?
it's not. It's got some added stuff in. I don't think they really did anything with the graphics, but they add some new stuff in for the 20th anniversary. So,
Can you actually finish the the war now? Because I know even in the
I
special
don't.
edition, yeah, you would pick one side or the other and go and do all the quest line for it, and then it just kind of hangs there. Like like you got these lieutenants out on the world map, and you go kill them, and it doesn't do nothing, even though it says to do that.
Honestly, honestly, sci-fi, I don't know for sure. I think maybe one of the reasons why you can't kill the lieutenants is it because they are characters that you interact with. They are actually named characters, and they had a part to play in that particular plot line and so on. But
Yeah, you can get them down to 0 health, but they're right back up in 30 seconds trying to attack you again if you don't run away. So.
mhm. Yeah, and I'll bring up your comment here, Eastland. Love the first Matrix, but wish for more new stuff in sequels. Some sequels felt like a retreaded tire. Yeah, especially with some of the of visual effect shots and so on. I do agree with you on that one too, Eastland. But all the same, I did enjoy the story they were trying to tell, and I'll bring up Daniel Martin's comment here because yeah, so much inspiration from anime. Can see some John Woo influence in there as well. Yeah, I could too. I love John Woo as a director. He's one of my he's a favorite of mine, most definitely. I mean, can we just let's see, John Woo? Can we just say Face Off?
Love that movie. Nicolas Cage
Oh,
and
oh yeah,
John Travolta.
oh yeah, and um, Alan Arkin. Yeah, totally. Let's see, and we got uh, Aislinn here. Got a migraine, like not migraine going on. Can you guys stay on until it ends? Yeah, I know you can't. Well, we'll be going for a little while, Aislinn and everything, and if you can, if you're not back before we close up for the night, you can always catch the replay. So
And I might even do some STO later on after this is over. So
cool.
make sure you check my channel out too, Eastland.
Yeah, I know Elysium included the link to your channel in the chat. So for any of you that aren't subscribed to Sci-Fi Nation, Mountains of Elysium has put the link to his channel in the chat. So go check out
And,
Sci-Fi. He does some
and
good.
if
He does. Go ahead, bud.
oh, I was just gonna say, if you can't scroll up that far, it's real easy. It's youtube.com/sci-fi nation, all one word, no dashes or spaces.
Let's see. I'll bring up Eastland's comment here. So I think the Avatar sequel will be a bust.
I didn't even know they were doing a sequel.
Yep, actually several. And I'm kind of on the fence about it, to be honest with you. I'm more so on the fence about the Avatar sequel than I am the Matrix sequel, because at least with the Matrix, it has stayed in the public consciousness for a lot of years. I don't know if you can necessarily say the same about Avatar, which kind of stinks because I know some people call it very derivative, but I did enjoy it for what it was in terms of the first Avatar film.
Yeah, I mean, for what it was, I enjoyed it, right? Without looking too far past it or too deep into it. For what it wasn't bad. You know, if you just watch it and take it for what it is on the surface.
Yeah. Well, you know, with the first Matrix film, they were definitely trying to do something different with the action. They wanted it to be more fluid. They wanted it to be a little more tightly knit in terms of the fighting skill level. Was the same, so that the characters. Dang it! What am I trying to say here? I'm sorry, guys. I don't usually blank like this. I've had a long day.
We've all got days like that, but don't worry.
Yeah. So, I'll just pop over here to Ferris's comment here. Hey, Ambassador, do you think that the all black outfits in the movie are sort of began the black leather trend in the late 90s? Because I've heard it affected the costume design for the first X-Men movie. Yeah, Ferris, I think they might have had a little bit of an influence, but here's the other thing too.
I think the Matrix had way more latex than X-Men did.
Well, and here's the other thing too. Singer did not want the outlandish costumes or costume design for his X-Men films. He wanted it to be more realistic, a lot more covert. And I think what he and the costuming team were able to create was something rather unique, but also something that was a lot more practical than, well, as Cyclops says to Wolverine, yellow spandex. In terms of the Matrix, it's somewhat different because there is somewhat more of a different vibe in the Matrix. Because if you take it that that club where Neo and Trinity meet, it's a very different atmosphere because you've got people that are dressed very outlandishly, very oddly, listening to very hard speed, heavy alt metal music.
Yeah, I think that was done on purpose, I believe. It was an alt underground club where like normal people would go to get their frustrations out, just to put it mildly.
Yes, I get what you're saying, Sci-Fi. I do get what you're saying. Not a problem. So, yeah, no. Yeah, Easton, you're not wrong there. I'm kind of glad that they did do a redesign on the costuming for the X-Men for the films. It did look better. I did like that they got a little bit more back to the original costuming design in oh crap, what was the last one of those? X-Men Apocalypse and somewhat in X-Men Days of Future Past. I did like what they did with those.
So. I'm behind at times. Last one I really even thought about watching was Origins.
Oh, X-Men Origins Wolverine. Yep. I will tell you, Sci-Fi, this is my perspective. It's my perspective alone. I would go watch First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse. Now, some people may tell you to pass on Apocalypse, and that's their prerogative to do so. But I personally really enjoyed those three. I did not see Dark Phoenix after I heard who was in charge because I was like, this guy bungled it once. I have no faith that he will do any better. And, well,
as somebody that's not a hardcore MCU fan, okay, or haven't been a comic fan, quote unquote, for over 20 years, I take these movies as I see them. You know, I'm not going to get
Yeah.
all in to the lore and this and that. I'm just going to look at the visuals. I'm going to look at the story. You know, and if it appeals to me, great. If not, then well, it didn't. You know, I'm not. I don't have a vested interest either way. So
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I'll bring up your comment here, Daniel. I have actually watched Dark City, and there was another one that came out around the same time period of both The Matrix and Dark City called The 13th Floor. And that was another one that dealt with varying forms of reality and so on. And yeah, I really enjoyed both of those films, to be honest with y'all. But for me, The Matrix, there was just something slightly different about that I really, really enjoyed. Yeah, in Eastland. I'll tell you all a funny story really quick. This is something I shared, but maybe y'all haven't been here for it. When me and Bam Ambassador first started meeting, and one of the first during the time I would go over to see her because she lived 2 hours away from me where I live, and I was talking to her about movies and everything on Skype because we would Skype back and forth with one another. And I asked her, I was like, well, when I come over, next time I come over to visit, would you want to go catch a movie or something? Excuse me. And she was like, yeah, sure, totally. She's like, is there anything good playing? I was like, well, have you seen any of the X-Men movies? She's like, oh, yeah. She's like, I really enjoyed those. I was like, would you want to go see Days of Future Past with me? She's like, yeah, sure. Absolutely. So we ended up going seeing Days of Future Past, and I was sitting there like a kid in a candy store, eating my popcorn, drinking my soda, and my eyes were just glued to the screen. I was soaking in every minute of it because that's one of my all-time favorite X-Men stories, to be honest with y'all. And anytime you can get a woman to like comic book movies, you got to keep her. So, but anyway.
Or I got to add to that, or sci-fi or video games.
Yeah, that's true too. I would wholeheartedly agree with that.
So. And that's why I am so grateful for my missus and the time that I'm going to be able to spend with her. Because we can sit back and relax and watch the same things, but still like our different things that we don't like to watch. That's what makes us different, but it also brings us together, and that's the beauty of it.
That is true. Very, very true. So, and, you know, you want to talk about some really crazy, outlandish visual effects in this film. The one where Neo and Trinity are in the elevator shaft after they get through all they get through the security team at the fairly guarded building where the agents are keeping Morpheus, and he sets the bomb. He latches the cable hook to the elevator cable, and then he fires around. The elevator goes crashing down. You're like, holy crap! Somebody could have died in that elevator. So, but
it would have only been their consciousness.
Yeah,
I mean, and their body, because if the consciousness dies, the body dies too. That's obvious.
Yeah, very, very, very obvious.
Unless you have, mechanical life support, which we have nowadays. But in a Matrix, it don't matter. They'll just flush it out and put a new one in.
Pretty much.
And guess where that body goes? It goes to feed all the other copper tops.
Pretty much, because as Morpheus was explaining it to Neo, humans are not born; they are made. I have seen fields, endless fields.
Which I do like, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but I do like in the third movie where we actually get a visual scene of that. The fields. That is the third movie, right?
For which?
Or was it for seeing the fields and fields of...
No, that was humans. The first film.
Was it the first one? Okay.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was the first film. Because you see the Flash as Morpheus tells Neo about what happens, and then you see it actually happen in real time. You're like, oh my freaking gosh. You see all these little incubation pods where people are being grown. And yeah, it was very disturbing. So
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was the first one or the third one because I know both the first and the third had like these spectacular uh, panning camera angles over, like looking down at everything down below. And in the
Mhm.
third one, obviously they go past the clouds and all that good stuff. I'm not gonna get into it,
Right.
but yeah. So the fields was in the first movie where they're looking down and all you can see from end to
Mhm.
end is nothing but fields and fields of humans in these pods hooked up to these giant Tesla coils, basically generating
Mhm.
electricity.
Mhm. Exactly. So, and I'll bring up your comment here, Ferris. 1 second, Ambassador. Did you know that Will Smith also uh, was going to play Neo? Have you heard the science scene stories? Being a play, just he ended up playing James West in Wild Wild West. No, Ferris, I honestly did not know that. I'll have to do some digging into that further. I wasn't aware that he got offered a part in the first Matrix. To be honest with you,
I didn't
so
either. And my honest opinion, I'm glad he did Wild Wild West. I love that movie.
it's okay. I don't hate it, but it's okay. So
It's just one of those quirky things that kind of gets my nerd juices going. I guess you could say. I mean, it's
mhm.
like it's a western and it's sci-fi and it's quirky and goofy and nerdy and dumb and awesome all at the same time type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, comparing the Matrix to some of the other films that came out around that same time period in terms of what they were saying about the concept of what is exactly reality. I have to I have to admit it is a question that's worth asking.
Is
So,
reality what we make it, or is it
mhm.
what we perceive?
Yeah, totally.
And I think
So,
that's one of I think that's one of the main questions they were asking.
yeah, let's say Eastland. Yeah, but I love the reboot idea I expressed because the reboot movies point out that it matters not a tiny bit if the of the matter. The physics is nonsensical because it's not Earth. It really doesn't count. Okay, I got what you're saying.
And
Right.
it's only a simulation for
Yeah,
aliens and their.
yeah, totally. And let's see. Cypher play by Joe Pontiano was such a weasel for selling them out, but given today's climate, sometimes I just wish I had plugged in to alternate reality. Daniel, I can understand where you're coming from on that one. Totally,
Dude,
totally,
when
totally.
he's getting ready to get plugged back in and he says, I know the steak isn't real, but I don't care.
Yeah, because at this point, he wants out. He's done. He just can't take it anymore. He's tired of eating the same gloop. He's tired of being cold. He's tired of having a beautiful woman on his arm. I can respect. I can understand that. So, but yeah.
Eastland liked the movie Knight's Tale. Yes, Knight's Tale. That was a good movie also.
Oh, yeah, Ethan, that's a great one. That's another one I may do a review on somewhere down the road because I do love that movie. I mean, it's Heath Ledger. May he be resting in peace. I hope.
Yes, yes. Rest in peace, Heath Ledger. That was a great movie too.
Oh yeah,
A lot alongside his portrayal of Joker.
oh yeah. You want to know how I got these scars? No, I don't want to know how you got those scars. Yeah, Ferris, I have listened to. Yeah, I love the sound. I never got a copy of it, but I have listened to it like digitally, and I really like the soundtrack to the first Matrix film. It's got some cool orchestral pieces, but it's also got a really good traditional soundtrack to it. And
it did late 90s. This came out in 99, right? So or was it earlier than that?
What, the first Matrix?
Yeah.
No, the first Matrix came out in the summer of 99.
99. Yeah, that's what I said.
Mhm.
So I was just 5 years out of high school. 24 years old. Grew up, went to high school basically from 1990 to 94. So, yeah. So coming out of the 80s, being in high school in the early 90s, and then this comes out with all the music I'm listening to at the time. Heck, yeah.
Well, yeah, because I'm not the biggest fan of Rob Zombie, but what's one of the first like heavy metal pieces of music that you hear in this little promo for this series? Rob Zombie.
More human than a human.
No, it wasn't More Human. It was I can't remember the name of the song. But I do remember the end credit song is done by Rage Against the Machine. And
was that Killing in the Name of?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Sci-fi.
Like I said, I got to rewatch it. I mean, it is such an awesome movie with a great soundtrack. So.
Yeah.
But I do remember like the movie parts. I just Dragula. Okay, was Rob Zombie's.
Yeah. I did remember that much. I did remember that it was Dragula. So, anyway. Whew. Let's see. Vamp your comment here, Eastland. Hate it. Staking the prettified reality, which is evil, dedicated to reality, unflinching, honesty. Being courageous enough to do this is the first step to being good instead of being evil. Yeah, Eastland, I do get what you're saying there.
And Cypher already did the evil. He's just trying to get his rewards for doing the evil.
Yeah, essentially. Because when they go to see the Oracle and he drops his phone.
The phone in the can. Yep, the trash can. And basically right there, boom, done. Turns them in. And yeah, that's when all that stuff pops off.
Yep. Pretty much. So. Anyway. Well, guys, I don't normally do this, but I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here in a few minutes because I think me and Sci-Fi have pretty much covered this film as much as we can. And I will be perfectly candid with you all. I am kind of dragging this evening. I am sorry for that. I meant to get myself a nap in before I went live, but unfortunately I just didn't get a chance to. But we might pick this up next week with the Matrix Reloaded with that discussion and everything. But Sci-Fi, I'm gonna let you have the final word, and then I'll give my thoughts, and then we will we'll wrap up. So,
all right. Well, for anyone that's watching now, which I'm pretty sure everyone watching now has seen the movie, but for anyone who might watch this replay that hasn't watched it, I encourage you, give The Matrix and the other two sequels, give the whole trilogy a watch. And if you didn't catch our stream on the Animatrix a few days ago, watch that as well. That's also worth a watch. It's really I consider it one of the better movie franchises out there.
I agree. Yeah.
And obviously, if you like what Ambassador's doing, like this stream video, as it were, after it re-uploads to YouTube. Yeah. Give him a like, give him a comment, let him know what you think, good or bad. He's just like me. He wants you to be honest with him, right?
Yes.
And same goes for me on my channel, Sci-Fi Nation on YouTube. You know, I love hearing from everybody, whether it's in live streams, in comments. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I like the thumbs down button because I want people to be honest. Save the thumbs down, people. I want honesty from my viewers. Okay, let me know what you think in the comments if you're on my channel. Okay, just be honest with me. I'll answer you. You know, just because we disagree on something doesn't mean we can't. That's part of being human. We can have different opinions and not be mad at each other.
Exactly.
And that's one thing I love about talking with the ambassador here.
Likewise, the feeling is very mutual. So, as for my, yeah, Daniel Martin, I will agree on that one. The sequels get way too much hate. Yeah, definitely. I will say this one last thing before we do wrap up, and we can bounce off this for a few minutes if you want to. Sci-fi. I honestly thought there was some truth in Agent Smith's monologue when Morpheus is in custody, when he says that all mammals on Earth find an equilibrium within their world, but for humans, we often don't. And I think that's true not just of the world that we live in, but also of the people that are around us. Mm-hmm. And the simple fact is, we are often in so much conflict and in such a hurry to get our own words out that we don't pay attention to what the other person has to say. We jump to conclusions. We assume. We make snap judgments.
We want to be the first one to get that gotcha point in there instead of actually hearing what the other person has to say.
Yeah. And I think it was rather presumptuous of Smith to assume that all humans were still the same from when they committed their atrocities and crimes against the early machines, like we saw in the Animatrix in the two-part story, the second Renaissance. And I think that bias, I think that hatred has carried over, unfortunately, on the part of the machines, but also to a certain degree, or maybe to a very vast degree, with the humans as well. Because the machines almost in a way just want to exist the same way that we do.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately they go to a very extreme end. But unfortunately I think the machines were forced to that end. If you do have the opportunity to watch the second Renaissance, it gives a lot of world building, a lot of background for why the world that we see in the first Matrix film is the way it is.
And didn't they compare that to like modern day, like we're living in now? They said it sometime in the early 20th century or early 21st century. This is what our world used to be, and so that's what the Matrix is. And but as far as they could tell, it was like the year almost
2199.
Okay, so almost 200 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. So, and it was kind of like that. We were discussing it yesterday over on my my Babylon 5 stream with the other council members, Lysium and Zod Rider and Lord Koj and everything. Motivations in evil are a matter of perspective. And a lot of the what you would consider villain characters in Babylon 5 are not truly evil.
No, I mean, because if you're a B5 fan, the first one that would come off is, okay, you got Jakar and Londo right off the bat, especially in the first two seasons. Okay, and then the Shadow War comes up, right? So obviously you got the big baddie, the Shadows, which are akin to like the Borg in Star Trek, that type of baddie, right? So, but yeah, you see all these people plotting and doing this and that and the third, and then they realize together, finally, when they're brought to the brink, we're not that important. Maybe we should get along and just do what we got to do to survive.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the truth is, if you do have the opportunity to watch the Second Renaissance, Morpheus and all the humans that come after are paying the price for what the other humans did way back in their past. They're repaying upon a punishment that they did not commit, nor did they endorse.
That's like sending your kids to prison for something you did, and so
Mhm.
on and so on and so on. Which there is a reference to that in Enterprise as well for all you Star Trek fans out there. I can't remember the name of the episode, but Archer. Wait, no, that's not Enterprise. Dang it, that's Andromeda. Dylan and Rami wind up on a planet. Okay, getting my Roddenberry shows mixed up there for a second.
Hey, it happens to the best of us, so don't feel bad. But the machines see the humans as evil, and the humans perceive the machines as evil. But the thing is, it was humans that forced the machines into the position that they are in.
It did, because one of the lines explicitly said was, "We don't know when it started, but we do know we're the ones that darkened the sky." And that led me to believe that the machines were solar powered, based. Probably, I'm assuming they're from the dialogue that the machines were
Mm-hmm.
solar powered mainly.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we darkened the sky. We set off our nukes, all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then they adapted
No.
in a big bad way.
Yeah, especially for us. So, anyway, well, folks, again, thank you for being here tonight. Like I said, I know this is somewhat of a shorter stream than I do with these discussions, but one, I am somewhat tired, but two, also, I think we covered the biggest chunk of this film, and we can always come back and everything to it with the next couple of reviews. And do want to let you all that we will be picking back up with the Matrix series next Thursday at 7:15. We'll be doing do a discussion on the Matrix Reloaded, and then of course next Sunday we'll be wrapping up the series with Matrix Revolutions. But next Saturday, got a very special stream lined up for you all. We're closing in on celebrating 2 years on YouTube, 2 years of the Ambassadorial Wing, and we're going to be doing a discussion on Ghostbusters Afterlife, and then got a very special announcement about a project I've been working on over the last year that I wanted to share with you all, and we'll just see kind of where the rest of the night takes us with that anniversary stream. So
One thing before you do your final goodbye.
Yeah,
my 2 years coming up in a few days for YouTube.
Awesome,
so.
Dude. You should do something for it. I'll be there. I'll come.
All right.
So, anyways, folks, thank you all for tuning in tonight. And Sci-Fi, again, thank you for joining me this evening. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion. I hope I was coherent.
Oh, you are. Thanks for having me, and get some rest, buddy.
I'm going to try. I am going to try. So, well, folks, we will see you next time. Y'all have a great night and a great weekend. And until next time, these are the Ambassadors, signing off.